1993. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1993 relating the authority of the Secretary of State to order a new election in certain counties.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
19 ayes and 12 nays. The bill is passed in engrossment. Will hold there, Senator Middleton.
In certain counties, did y'all hear what she said? The legislation, Senate Bill 1993, passed in the Texas Senate on Tuesday by a vote of 19-12, as you just heard. Let's take a closer look at the bill. According to the text of the bill, the Secretary of State, a position appointed by Republican Governor Gregg Abbott and is currently held by Jane Nelson, would have the authority to throw election results in counties wherein 2% or more of the polling locations ran out of ballot paper for more than 1 hour. In the event that an election was thrown out, a new one would then be held. And we know it's harder for people to go back and vote all over again, and it's a lot of confusion. But that's what they want, because Republicans can't win unless they cheating. What this means is that Governor Abbott would have precedent-setting power to reverse elections if the bill passes as expected. There's no reason, there is no excuse why we can't competently run our elections and have adequate ballot paper. Republican State Senator Mays Middleton, one of the bill's co-sponsors, said, according to the Houston Chronicle. So the question is, how did this come up? Well. The specific parameters of the bill were inspired by incidences in Harris County during the 2022 midterm elections, in which 26 out of the county's 782 polling locations were affected, according to the Houston Chronicle. Despite the relatively small number of locations affected, the issue was seized upon by Texas Republicans, some of whom claimed that the shortages cost them their races, ultimately leading to the push for legislation that resulted in Senate Bill 1993. Middleton said the shortage stopped countless people from voting on election day, like they give a damn about that. But a Houston Chronicle study concluded that the paper shortage did not alter the outcome of the elections in Harris County, defying Republicans' claim of voter suppression in GOP-leaning areas. So, Max, we have a case of never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, I mean, this law is a great example of how corruption doesn't need to be complex. I mean, there's essentially 2 steps here. One is what the Republicans did last year, which is underfund the largest county election offices in the state. And now it's step 2, is when those underfunded county election offices can't keep up with ballots, just invalidate their results and host a do-over election. I mean, this isn't peewee football. You don't get do-overs in elections because you don't like the results. And the sad thing is, this isn't just Texas. I mean, other states are using this now as a blueprint, not just to take away election results, but to essentially ban progressive activists from accessing ballot initiatives. I mean, these are multi-front wars on democracy, and almost no one in the national press is paying attention to them.
No, that is exactly right. And Max, my home state of Ohio is one of them where the Republicans have super majority. I mean, they done supered that thing up since I left the Ohio Senate. But yeah, they want to increase the threshold from a simple majority to 60% to get a ballot measure on, and that really only hurts activists who are trying to put things on the ballot. And it makes me remember Senate Bill 5, which was anti-labor, that the Republicans passed, but the voters in the state overturned it. Thank God they did. But imagine if the bill that they're trying to pass now was in effect, may not have been able to get it on the ballot in the first place. So if they can't win straight up, they just go ahead and rig the game. And it doesn't matter that the facts point otherwise. The Houston Chronicle said that what these Republicans are complaining about is really a non-issue. They got the power, so they're changing the game. And so while the text of the legislation does not explicitly mention Harris County, the authority it would vest in the Secretary of State applies only to counties with populations higher than 2.7 million. Now, you ain't got to be a rocket science to understand where they going with this. Harris is the largest county in Texas with nearly 4.7 million residents and the only one to meet the requirement. No coincidence. With the second largest Dallas County boasting only 2.6 million residents, Harris County has also tipped Democratic in every presidential election since 2008. So y'all, you got your answer right there. We know exactly why they are doing this. And once again, this is all just a tactic to silence voters. It really is just that simple. Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee told the Cron that the bill was, quote, about targeting the largest county in the state, which is led by people of color. Go ahead and tell that truth. This headline right here: Black voters are transforming the suburbs and American politics. An influx of Black voters into suburbia holds enormous promise for Democrats, but Republicans are fighting back. And indeed, they're fighting back. They're fighting back by cheating. And how about this? Black Texas living in more of Houston's suburbs, the Black population of suburban census tract in Harris County. And we can see that Black people are really moving into these communities. It's causing Republicans a whole lot of angst, baby. The migration of Black Americans in suburban areas was already a threat to the GOP. They know it and they're acting upon it. The suburbs were ground zero for gerrymandering this cycle. Michael Lee of the Brennan Center, or Lee, maybe, of the Brennan Center said in a Political magazine interview. Lee noted that in California, where redistricting is left to an independent commission, the GOP actively courts minority voters. But in Texas, Republican map crafters, quote, sort of decided to lean in on finding a way to make districts white, end quote. I mean, Max, they have no shame.
No, they're being completely open that they don't particularly want to hear from voters, that if anything, voters are getting in the way of Republicans instituting their plans. I mean, you're taking away people's access to amend their own constitutions. You're saying essentially we can void your results whenever you want. And as you point out, these are minority communities. So it really is like Republicans spent the last century chasing Black and brown people out of the suburbs, out of white cities. So these Black and brown communities made their own cities. But boy, the hand of Republican oppression has certainly chased them to where they went to, and is now saying, now that you're here, none of your votes are going to get to count in our state elections. How is that any different than just saying Jim Crow with a little less overt racism in the language?
There it is. It is exactly the same thing. It is just more covert. Jim Crow is wearing a suit now and sits respectably in the legislature. That's the only thing that's happening.